God bless everybody today. It is October 31st of 2022. There's a lot happening in the world, and this is an update on a crisis that's possibly going to play out in the next few months, specifically potentially in the next 20 to 30 days. So let's look at what's going on here. So we're having a massive diesel shortage across the U.S., and this has been going on. I know it says October 30th here on the article, but this has actually been going on for about a week. And at that time, they were talking about 25 days left in diesel. And so this is a real problem because diesel, trucks, trains, barges, things like this are going to affect the diesel. There's 3 distillants that they need to use to run most of the diesel trucks and different things across the nation. And so when you run into a shortage, like actual fuel, and fuel's extremely high, diesel's between like $5 and $7 a gallon right now. It's much higher than gas in general. That this is going to be a real problem, and this is compounded by a number of things that are happening across the nation and across the world at this time. So if we run into a diesel shortage and we can't get the freight to move across the country, this is going to put stress on supply chains, and it's going to cause shortages across the nation, especially while we are watching the farmers pull crops out of the fields. Now, we've had a lot of drought and different things across the nation, and so the crops are down this year. Wheat's having issue. Ukraine is a real problem because Ukraine produces a lot of the wheat for the third world countries and other different things, and so we're exporting a lot more grain to other countries, and so that's causing shortfalls here. But then we've run into another problem in this country. And in reality, we have a number of different issues. 2 in specific I'm going to talk about other than the diesel problem. We have a potential rail strike. Now, there's 12 unions, I believe, and don't quote me on that, but I believe there's 12 unions. They all have to agree on ratifying this new agreement through the unions, and they're not. 2 of these different groups have said they do not want this agreement. They're not getting enough time off. They basically live on the trains 24/7. They have been, they've been doing this for years. These guys are wore out. They're being stressed due to all the different supply chain issues in the country and different things like that. And so the unions aren't, the railroads aren't allowing the unions and the workers to get what they want. So the unions and the workers are probably going to strike. And so we're going to see that happen. And if that happens, that's 30% of the distribution of products throughout the country. And so if you have this happen, and then you have a diesel shortage, that's going to cause problems with the truckers because they're going to be picking up the slack, and we've already got less truckers on the road since the COVID pandemic of 2020 moving forward. We've lost a lot of truckers, and so we're short on truckers. And then diesel is at $5 or $7 a gallon, and so that compounds what the freight costs are. And so if the railroad strike happens, that's going to cause hyperinflation in freight transportation costs, either through rail, barges, air, or ship. And so this is just going to keep compounding. And so if we see a diesel, and look at what the timing is. Diesel is going to potentially run into a shortfall about the same time we have a rail strike here on November 19th. But then we got a third strike against us that's going to compound this even more. The Mississippi River, from especially St. Louis all the way down to the Gulf, is extremely low. I was talking to a friend of, actually he's a cousin of mine, works on the barges, and they say they're loading the barges 10% lighter than what they normally would because the water levels are so low in the Mississippi that they can't transport the grain. So these are just the drought is causing massive, water reduction in these, main rivers and lakes and different things across the nation. And so what are we seeing? We're watching the actual Mississippi dry up in front of us. So not only do you have a potential loss of diesel products, which keeping the diesel truckers moving, you also have the railroad strike, which could potentially affect, diesel affects the trains too, but it also could potentially shut down a third of the freight across the nation. And then you can't get the different crops, soybean, corn, wheat, and things onto the Mississippi and get them to the export or move them across the nation, or, we're exporting a lot of grains across the nation, even though we probably could use them here. So what's happening there is they're forcing these truckers that have loaded with grain to go back to the farms, and then they have to store this, this grain somehow. Well, they don't have the capacity. A lot of these are drying grain bins. They don't have the capacity to store it for long-term, storage. And they can't put it on the ground. They have to tarp it. They have to do very specific things to maintain these grains and different crops once they, cultivate them. And if they put them on the ground because they don't have storage bins or places to put them, then a lot of this top and lower level of the corn on the bottom of the ground, even if they tarp it or wherever, is going to rot. And so you're going to watch a lot of these grains rot. And so this is going to cause other problems because we feed a lot of our animals through these grains. And so, as grains go up, transportation and fuel goes up, diesel potentially could go up even higher because you have a shortage of it. And yes, we have more diesel coming in, but they can't refine it fast enough to keep up with the demand. And if the railroad goes down, then you've got an additional weight on demand. If the Mississippi and the barges can't go up and down the river, then it takes like 60 to 70 semi truck loads to offload one barge, and so this is going to put additional stress on the diesel truckers, and they're already wore out through all this, and we're in a shortage in truckers anyway. So this is all going to break down as we move forward in the next few months. And so people need to start putting food away. If you haven't started prepping and putting food away and figuring how to, get water, because we need about 1 gallon to 2 gallons of water a day per person. And I was watching another video, and he had a really good question that he put forward to everybody. If you had to get water, if the water systems went down this very moment, and we all say, well, we have water around us. Well, yeah, okay. Well, how far is that water? And if you took 2 5-gallon jugs and carried that water, which is basically 8 pounds per gallon, which are 40 pounds plus the weight of the container, and you had 80 pounds of water in your hands, and you were trying to, keep up with washing the dishes, feeding yourself, cleaning yourself, and all the different things, washing the clothes and different things that you're going to have to carry water every day. How far is that water, and could you actually carry water per day? And look at the energy that you're using in doing that. And so, these things matter. As we start to break down as a system here, and we start to watch hyperinflation of food, fuels, and different things, this is going to cause a real problem for everybody. So with all that going on, this just got more complicated because in the Black Sea, we just had an attack on a number of fleet ships in the Russian army through drones. And so they've shut down temporarily the Black Sea, and so a lot of grain that was being transported from Ukraine to other countries and different things, that was temporarily shut off. Now we're watching something happen here because the UN now is working with Ukraine and Turkey to get the transport of these grains out of the Black Sea and to be able to disperse them throughout the nations. And so this was causing a problem because this was originally, Putin was involved in this. And so now that we've had this attack on Putin's one of their main ships, they're not working with Putin. So we're having this breakdown between Turkey and Russia on this specific level, and this is going to cause other issues as we move forward. And so I just wanted you to be aware of these strikes and these disruptions and how this is going to drive food costs up. Now, the other thing that I do want you to be aware of, as we move into the next planting season, fertilizers are going to be 3 or 4 times higher in price than what we've seen this year. And so as we start to see farmers get ready for this next planting season, they're going to have to make some hard choices. You're going to see a lot of actual farms probably default because they can't afford to plant the crops, or this could even affect a lot of the animals and stuff because they may have to euthanize the animals because they can't afford to feed them or maintain them in droughted areas and different things like that. And so this is going to cause all kinds of problem with food and hyperinflation in food, and this is not going away anytime soon. And so, when these farmers, if you take like corn, it's a high nitrogen fertilizer plant, okay? So you have to put a lot more nitrogen on a corn crop than you would maybe soybeans or wheat or whatever. And so people are going to start making harder choices on what types of grains and different things that they're going to plant due to costs and margins and how everything's getting compressed or squeezed in their revenues. And so these guys are going to have to make really hard choices, and we're actually going to watch a lot of these crops rot in the fields and on the ground because they can't move them in the fall. Then that's going to cause even heavier weight on famine and food shortages and different things throughout the world, and the world's going to need more food, and so they're going to put pressure on us to export more of our grains out of this country, which is going to drive up the price of all these different foods and commodities and different things like that. And as the dollar strength moves up and other currencies fall in value, as they convert their dollar or their money to dollars so that they can buy our exports of grain and different things like that, that means that their money is less and less value due to the dollar strength, and so they can't buy as much. And so this is going to start to cause a real problem, and we're going to watch a potential BRICS event where we see a digital yuan and other basket of Eastern currencies, India and different places like Russia and different things like that are going to have their own digital currency. As their currencies are collapsing, they're going to move away from the petrodollar. And we've also watched Saudi Arabia move away from the petrodollar and start to align with Russia and China as they move away from the United States, as we've made some really bad deals through the government here in the just recently. So and that's going to affect the cost of fuel, because as we move forward, we're already watching fuel. Brent's moved up to about $95 a barrel again. If we see a disruption similar to the Nord Stream that we just had a month or so ago, that's going to bring fuel back up into that $120 barrel range. That's going to move your price back up into the $5 to $7 on just regular fuel. And premium's going to be up in the $7, and then your diesel is going to move up into that $7 to $10 range, because it's already at about $5 to $7 on the market now throughout the average of the nation. And so all these disruptions, all these different strikes, all these, Mississippi being low, everything is starting to culminate in the perfect storm. And as we move into this next growing season, as we walk into the next fall, this is going to impact us even at a much greater level than it is this year. So if you're starting to feel the pain this year, next year is going to be a much larger pain, and you need to start to put your food stores and things together now, because if you think things are expensive now, in another year they're going to be 2 to 3 times as expensive, because hyperinflation of food is not going away anytime soon. So God bless everybody. Keep your chin up. Things are going to get tough. Realize God is in control of this whole picture. Jesus is the door to get us out of this mess, and so believe in the Lord. Have faith, because that's the most important thing we have on this planet, of this material garbage that's in front of us, because the material doesn't matter. The flesh won't matter before long. We have to figure out how to get to the next level, and that's a spiritual thing. And so you have to leave the material things behind, but you have to get to the end of this picture, which I've been trying to explain to you through the paradigms and things that I presented on my websites and stuff. You have just about 5 years, or just under 5 years at this time, to get through this picture. And a lot of us aren't going to make it, but you do have to realize that God is in control of everything that happens out here. Jesus, if he's breaking the seals at this very moment, has the title deed to this world, to this planet, in his hand. He owns it. Yes, Satan will send his Antichrist down upon us soon, but Jesus owns the title deed to the planet. God bless everybody. Get ready. Prep. Time is short. Fill your oil in your lamp and get ready. Things are going to change rapidly as we move forward in the next few months. God bless. Have a great day.